So, Mandy Marquardt. Did I say it right?
Yes.
Oh, thank God. 22-time U.S. national champ and 3-time American record holder in track cycling. That is massive. Is that correct? Or do you have more numbers to that since my research was done?
That was correct.
Awesome. So you were born in Germany. You grew up in South Florida. So talk to me about Germany first. Like, do you remember Germany? Like, were you old enough to remember it, or did you just move to Florida when you were a baby?
I remember bits of it in Germany. So I was born in Mannheim, Germany,
Okay.
and my father's German and my mom is American.
Awesome. You a big soccer fan?
Unfortunately not.
Oh.
My dad was like, you're not going to play soccer. That's for male athletes.
What?
Yeah, growing up. So I got into like swimming and running and other sports. He just never saw it as a female.
Oh my gosh.
Sport.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a rough way to start.
I know. But then when I was in school, I always would see young athletes, injured from soccer. And I was like, oh, it makes sense. So I was never injured.
I would imagine you could get injured in track cycling, though, no?
Not so often, but yeah, you can break your clavicle.
Like, isn't that like where the track kind of like tilts up and they're like gunning it around and you guys go at like 1,000,000 miles a minute? I would imagine all it takes is like one little...
There's some bumping. So I do the sprint side of it,
Okay.
sprint cycling, and there's endurance. So in sprint cycling, it is more aggressive. So they're shorter events, but there's four sprint events, but I compete primarily in 3.
So talk to me about the difference between sprint and endurance. Like, I'm assuming training is like way different. So for sprint, you're just pushing yourself as hard as you can for X amount of time versus endurance where you're trying to kind of save up. And I would imagine it's the same thing with like sprinters for running and marathon runners.
Yeah, anaerobic and aerobic. So I'm more of a sprinter primarily in the weightlifting area of it, where I build my strength and explosiveness, and then I transfer that onto the bike. So sometimes I'll train double sessions. A lot of my training, so I spend a lot of hours training, but I'm not primarily on the bike the whole time. Where endurance athletes are on the bike maybe 2 to 4 to 6 hours, depending on which training phase they're in. But right now, my biggest is being in the gym 3 times a week, and then also on the watt bike. So it's an indoor trainer. That simulates kind of a real feel since I'm not on the track right now.
Okay.
And I train about 6 days a week, a lot of double sessions. So it's nice to go through different periods of training and different blocks of training. So I'm definitely tired a lot, but I do take my recovery just as serious.
Sure. 6 days a week, double sessions all 6 days?
Just not Mondays and Wednesdays. Wednesdays I usually get an easy recovery day, so I had a massage this morning.
Good Lord, I am never going to complain about being tired again.
It is a full-time job.
Yeah, no kidding.
Just mentally to just also like remove yourself a little bit here and there is really good. So just taking time off when you need it, when it's in the plan too.
So not only are you a super athlete, but you also are a diabetic. So let's talk about the challenges that causes. Like, I can't even imagine being a super athlete, number one, then being a diabetic on top of it. Does it make a big difference?
It's definitely hard. So I would usually say I'm a person living with diabetes.
Okay.
So people never like to say diabetic because
Okay.
it's more of like a label to yourself, or if you're living with diabetes, you're a person living with diabetes.
Hell,
There's kind of
I
that
already
stigma.
look like an idiot already. Thank you.
No, there's just the stigma behind it. So I know a lot of people living with diabetes feel that way. They never want to label themselves as diabetic.
Okay.
But it's a big part of my life. But being diagnosed at 16 and just being an athlete from when I was 6-7 years old. So when I moved from Florida, to Pennsylvania, I moved everywhere, but from Germany to Florida, I was already in athletics. So I've always just been an athlete.
Okay. I think one of the coolest stories I saw when I was, doing research on you was when you found out about your diabetic condition. One of the doctors said that you'd never be an athlete again. Now, obviously it wasn't a St. Luke's doctor, but you just totally said, no, that's not going to be me, and just kind of flipped a switch? Or
Not right away. I first believed him. I was like thinking maybe I could potentially hurt myself by competing at a high level. So at that point, I was racing for the state of Germany, and a little bit for the national team. So I was just getting integrated there when I moved back when I was 15. So my parents had split when I was 14. I was like, oh, I think this is a really great opportunity to go to Germany and race and live there for a bit and get some international race experience.
Wow, that's amazing.
And that doctor. I haven't seen that doctor.
I was gonna say,
I know he's older.
this guy?
No, I know he's older. So I think through the grapevine he heard a little bit about me because it was in Mannheim where I was born, not at that hospital, but just through other people there. I think he eventually found out that wasn't true. So
good on you, man. That's kind of my thing. Like, kill him with your success. Let's talk a little bit about the sprints in your event. It was the Max Sprint, I believe it's called. Match.
But just sprints, because there's 4 sprint events total.
Okay.
The 4 sprint events are the sprint, the Kieran, the 500 time trial, and the team sprint. So those are 4 major events, but 3 of them are only Olympic events.
Now, not to sound like a complete moron, because I know nothing about racing, but is the track the same size as, say, like runners' tracks, or are they different sizes for cycling? So
primarily on the international side of competing, I'm racing on a 250-meter velodrome. So it's an indoor wooden track, and the banking is about 45 to 48 degrees. So it's pretty steep, so you have to go quite a certain pace to stay on the track. But in the events that I do in the match sprint, it's a 200-meter qualification. So I have the track to myself in that time. Oh. So it's kind of every rider is going up. So they're waiting in line at the bottom of the track, and then they get pushed up. So you're trying to use as less energy as possible in the beginning, and then you're trying to ramp up your speed, and everybody's on a different gear. So when you hit the 200-meter line, then to the finish, that 200 is going to give you your overall time, and then it seeds you in the sprint tournament.
And how many seconds would you say from like start to finish would be a good time, or what you're going for? Yeah,
so the world record was set in Cochabamba by Canadian Kelsey Mitchell. It is a 10-1, and at that event, it was the Pan American Championships. It was very high altitude, so it was crazy fast conditions. And on the American side, we were 4th and 5th with 10-4. So, but
10 seconds?
Yeah, it goes quick. But typically,
Stop for just a second. You train 6 days a week, double sessions for 10 seconds of your life. That's crazy to me.
That part, that's part 1.
Oh, but there's more.
That's like Usain Bolt, right? He said that before. He's trained his whole life just for
So that's got to be
100
like
meters.
Crazy pressure when it's go time.
Yeah, and especially not being able to race in the last couple of years makes it really hard because you're just nervous because you just haven't had that race stimulus. So It's really hard. And 2019 was like one of my best seasons, and then I just kind of went a little bit downhill with obviously with COVID and everything just shutting down, and it just was hard. We haven't really had any racing. But to kind of get back into the sprint side, it's the qualification, and then you get seeded in a sprint tournament, kind of like March Madness.
Okay.
So you race against, so if you're the fastest qualifier, then you race, and they only take the top 24 riders, and you say there's 30 or 35 riders, only the top 24 qualify. It just depends what major event it is, whether it's nationals, Pan Ams, World Cups, just World Championships. So we have a lot of events that we have to do in order to qualify for other events. So that's another story, but we have to race then one-on-one against them. And in the earlier rounds, it's just like one ride. So you have, even though you've qualified faster, you still have to keep an eye on the rider that's qualified slower, because maybe you're just missing out on something tactically, or they're tactically better, but still the fastest person usually wins, but you just can never let your guard down.
This is crazy.
It is. There's a lot of technical, tactical, a lot of things, aerodynamics, like your bike or position. But anyway, so you're racing against them one-on-one. Say you win, okay, they're out. You move on to the next round. So then you eventually then get to the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the finals. And those are people that you're racing against that have qualified similar to your time. And then it's right there, like really just about using tactics as well, and making sure you don't you hit your top speed maybe before or after, just depending on, because you can only hold on to it for a certain amount of time. That's why we train really hard too, because we're always trying to get maximal power, average power. We're always looking at, building more muscle mass or just making sure our recovery is there. Like there's just so much to it.
Is there something known as like the perfect line around the track? Like, is there like a spot that you're aiming for? Like I know, and I hate to do this because you're like this awesome athlete and I'm like this, I'm going to compare it to bowling. So like I'm a bowler and there are what we call your mark. And as long as your ball goes over your mark and you throw it the way you're supposed to, it will reach the pocket and you'll get a strike every time. So is there a perfect line around the track that you're aiming for?
So each track is a little bit different actually. So just depending on the person who built the track. Turns could be tighter on some tracks, like in Bolivia. That's such a high altitude fast track that it kind of whips you out of the turn. So even in the Kieran, which is a six person race behind a motorcycle pulls off. Anyway, it's a very aggressive race, but you don't want to be near the back because you're going to have a harder time to get around because of the track. The way the track is, it's tighter in the turn, so you have a hard time coming around, or you have to make that move earlier. And then tracks that are have like longer bends and shorter straights, there's more of an advantage to getting around that. You have to know the track too, and getting to race all over the world at different tracks, you get to kind of see, okay, this is my favorite track. I like this. I don't like this track for this reason. Or you start to learn, okay, this is what I need to do. You have to change up your tactics.
Oh, that's way cool. I didn't know they had different tracks. So it's kind of like stock car in a way, where they have the different tracks and you need to kind of memorize your turns and know where you need to hit. Wow, that's wild.
When you race one-on-one, it's very technical and tactical, because if you're higher on the track and you're low, you have to think about, okay, they can come with more speed, so I have to also match their speed. So it's being able to look back on the track without looking forward. So you have to ride on the track looking back.
Oh my gosh.
So like a little bit of a head tilt. So that's what, like, in the beginning when I came from endurance to sprint, just because my body type just wasn't fitting the endurance kind of races, and I was more suited for sprinting. And so I really, in the beginning I did a lot of training to make sure I could do that, and a lot of like technical stuff and sparring, we call it, with my teammates, just because little mistakes can happen. So it's so you're practicing.
Do we want to talk about the stare down too?
Yeah.
Stare down?
Oh.
That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
You stare people down at the line?
Well, yeah, you do that. Well, one-on-one, sometimes some riders don't. So it's kind of like I don't care kind of. It depends how you feel. If
Do you stare people down?
Sometimes I kind of like, depends on my mood.
Dude, I want to I know you'd crush me in a race, but I want to get on a bike and just get stared down, and then you just take off and I fall over.
You have to come to the races in the summer.
That would be amazing.
In Truxertown. So we get a lot of international riders who come, and we're racing for UCI points, and those points qualify us for international races like Nations Cups, which are World Cups. They just renamed it. And also just our UCI world ranking. So a world sprint ranking. Before we get on the track, there's, before you have heats. So say your heat 8 and heat 6 is up right now, so you're waiting to race, and then you have to pick on this iPad 1 or 2. Sorry, I got aggressive.
She's already punching the microphone, guys. Look out.
So you don't know what you're going to draw, position 1 or 2 on the track. So say if you're position 1, then you're over, and then the position 2 is under, and so then your coach rolls you up, and then you get pushed off, and then you go really slow for the first lap, because what's the point of wasting your energy when you have 2 more laps to go? So you want to, when I said you reach top speed, you can only hold on to it for a certain amount of time, so you have to use the track too to kind of help you. So you're kind of getting some momentum and using the track too to your advantage to get some speed. So you can roll down to get some more speed, and that puts pressure on the front person. So it's very
super intense.
It is very intense. So not doing it for a while and racing is it's really hard, because the European countries have raced some outdoor competitions or have raced European championships, and they've a little more racing. So when we had World Championships in Roubaix, I haven't. My last race was Hong Kong in May, and before that was Worlds in Berlin, right before the pandemic hit. So it's really nerve wracking.
So you're like a caged animal right now. Like you're ready to like go.
I am. I just want to get some racing before the big races happen again. So we have a training camp in Colorado in a couple of weeks, and then we're supposed to go over to Europe for a camp. And then there's a UCI race in Belgium right before the Nations Cup in Glasgow, which should help get some of the racing out of our system, that kind of that nervousness out before a major competition. And then the next Olympic cycle starts next year for the 2024 Paris. So this year is good in a way, like that it's not an Olympic qualification year for the next cycle, just because it gets some racing back.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Obviously COVID, and then the Olympics. You were hopeful, and then do you think COVID had a major impact on what happened there, or like?
Yeah, I definitely think it had a big part in that. I was going really well in 2019.
Yeah, because you said that was like your best season, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was definitely one of the higher ranked Americans. And then when we had our big race in Hong Kong earlier this year, it was just a crazy travel. Like, okay, we haven't raced. I was training on a walk bike all winter. I haven't been on a track compared to like other countries. So not the U.S., but other countries who have been on their tracks, or like say Canada, who's all shut down, but the national team will still get to train on their Olympic velodrome, on their own track.
Right.
Which is an Olympic standard velodrome. Where here, when I get to train, it's too cold, but it's not an Olympic size standard velodrome. So I usually have to go out to California to train. And so I couldn't do that.
So when you got to Hong Kong, that was like the first time you were racing again, right?
Correct. Yeah. So before that was Berlin in 2020, March 1st, March 4th, around there, right before it all hit. So that was the last time. Well, so I went to LA for a camp before going to Hong Kong earlier this year. And that was my first time back on the velodrome, the indoor velodrome, since Berlin.
Oh, wow.
So it's really hard,
Sure.
when you just, where this is more of a power track, and then you get to a speed track, and then, you've done all this training, and like, you don't have enough time to like figure out, okay, gearing or just the feel of it. Like it takes some time to get that feeling back.
Sure.
Where others like haven't maybe missed a beat. So, that was really hard.
I'm sure.
And, so that was a 52-hour travel since there was some COVID mishaps. Our test, our test wasn't in that window. It was a major travel, right, to get from LA to Hong Kong, but we had a layover in Taiwan, and it was a 7-hour layover, but it fell out of that window, the COVID testing window from when we left LA. So you can't blame it on, you could blame it on somebody, but I don't know.
It's got to be somebody's fault.
Somebody's, yeah. So anyway, it was crazy because we had to spend the 24 hours in the airport, but we didn't even know first, like, okay, if we can get out of here. We were looking at flights back already. Like they weren't telling us anything. Like they weren't even saying, okay, the race organizers have heard anything. It was Sunday, okay. But still, we're waiting. Are we going to leave back to the hotel, or are we flying back? Nothing was said. And also, like, the food that they had was just bread and Cheez-Its. And,
oh, my God.
I just, had enough protein powder, but I was just not doing well. Like, my blood sugars were just high from the lack of sleep. We were sleeping then on these cots, first on the floor, but the Hong Kong people didn't like it. So they took us to this area that was more private, and so it was these, I think, where COVID patients were, but it was very empty, and so that's where we were. Anyway, at least we had a cot to sleep on, but it was just not a good situation. By the time we got to our hotel, and it was just a different race environment.
Well,
we were stuck in our room. We had security right outside of our room. They would deliver food. You couldn't leave your room until you were told, okay, the team, this one team is out, one country's out, and then you come downstairs, like you have your own elevator. Like that was always a fun place to go.
Sure.
It was just a different scenario. Hazmat suits, they would like, they would, in the lobby when we would leave, they would clean the floors like right behind us, and they would disinfect the elevators. I mean, it was...
Especially when you're about to race something
Right
you've
next-
trained for your entire life.
Yeah, and right next to everybody that we're like all distance from. And I get they did a really good job taking all the measures, but man, it was just like this race kind of determined too, like, you know, this final Olympic spot, because my teammate and I were really like, it's just two of us in one spot.
Wow.
So we can qualify 2 sprint spots, but unfortunately we only qualified 1. And so yeah, it made it really hard. But I was an alternate, and I didn't get to go just because of with COVID and everything. But it was probably better that I stayed home.
All right, so we're going to go with one of your favorite quotes here. If you shoot for the moon, you'll miss and land in the stars. So I'm thinking France 2024, that's all you, right?
Yeah, I'm aiming for it, and I want to be there. And I'm telling myself, like, maybe it happened for a reason. I mean, I know the athletes that did go. I mean, it was great to go and to represent your country, but the full experience wasn't there, you know. The velodrome, too, was like 2 hours away from the Olympic Village, so it was just very disconnected. And with all the protocols, it was just get there and get out. So I'm hopeful that, you know, the next time around will be different, and that's where I'm meant to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Olympics comes once every 4 years. You want to enjoy your time there, not worried about people in hazmat suits and everything else.
Yeah.
This is exciting. Now, I need you to do me a favor. When you're there, and you're about ready to throw down for the biggest race of your life, I want you to throw out the biggest stare down ever. That would be amazing.
Even in the first round, because,
Yeah.
the plan is to make it all
Get
the way to the
intense.
finals.
Be intense. Like, throw some German at him. That'll throw him off.
Yeah. No, that's the fun part of it. It's like, even off the bike, you know, you meet somebody that you don't know who you're going to be racing against, because it depends on where you qualify, right? So, but any of the girls that you compete against, like, you know, you see them in the bathroom or something, and it's like, you know, you kind of just, you have to act up already there.
I was going to say, like, is there, like, rivalries and stuff? Like, shoulder checking in the bathroom?
No, none of that. But it's like, you know, you kind of have your headphones on, and, like, you kind of just do your thing. You're
That's
in the
so
zone.
awesome.
Everybody has a routine. But it's funny because, like, even the coaches are kind of in on it, too. Like, when you're waiting to go up to race, you know, your coach and their coach is there waiting with your bike, you know, because
Sure.
they're going to bring you up. And it's just like, you have all the cameras, and you're just, like, sitting there, and there's just so much intensity in that moment. You're just thinking, you know, that you're going to
Kick butt.
kick butt.
Yeah.
I couldn't say what I wanted
I know.
to say.
Well, you probably could have, but
Beep.
that's awesome, man.
Beep stuff up. So
I'm
yeah.
so excited for this. So you had mentioned gearing of the bikes. Again, you're going to have to speak to me like I'm a 5-year-old, because I have no idea what that means. I mean, I think I had a 10-speed when I was younger, but I didn't even know what I was doing there. I think I kept it on 1 gear. So what gears mean something in racing, I'm assuming?
So to kind of bring it back, so on road bikes, you have gears that shift.
Okay.
So on a track bike, it's a fixed gear. So I'm changing the front chainring. And then I have a cog in the back. And so I'm changing that depending on the cadence that I want to hit. So if I want a higher cadence, then I'm going to put a smaller gear on. And if I'm trying to hit a certain cadence, then I try to go for a gear range that my coach or what I'm looking for, or kind of like, I know a peak cadence that I can hit in a race that I'm able to hit. Like,
But you can't change it on the fly. Like, it has to be set before
correct.
you go? Okay.
Yes. So we have, at international competitions, we have mechanics there that do our bikes. So kind of like Formula One, we have our own pit crew.
Oh, that's cool.
And also then when I'm here, then I do my own gearing and training. So for every effort, if I'm trying to hit a certain RPM, then I might change my gear to hit that RPM. So I have a power meter on my bike too. So it can tell me, okay, how much power, the speed that I'm hitting, the top speed, and then the average power. And then I can analyze all that data with my coach too.
Now, do you as the athlete make that decision come race time, or is it kind of like a coach's decision, or you both kind of do it together?
A little bit of both. I think there's also this level of confidence and trust in the gear that you're picking, and also with my coach's formula, and everybody kind of has a standard formula, but it kind of already gives you an idea of what cadence you want to hit. So this is the gear range you want. So
All right, so switching gears here, no pun intended. Let's talk about Team Novo-Nordisk, the world's first all-diabetes cycling team.
Yeah, it's been incredible to be a part of Team Novo-Nordisk. I mean, we're all living and racing with type 1 diabetes, and when I was diagnosed at 16, it was a hard time because I felt really alone, and it was awesome to find a community of athletes. And back then, in 2010, it was a mix of people living with diabetes and people who weren't. So it was in 2014, Novo-Nordisk became the title sponsor, and they have grown, and everybody on the team has type 1. Phil Sutherland, the CEO of the team, he used to race too, and he had this passion to start the team through school, just trying to get more awareness out there for people living with type 1 diabetes. And the impact that we've been making worldwide over the last decade together is just incredible. I didn't think my career would be able to help other people see what they're able to do.
Well, it's got to be nice to be able to confide in another athlete and know that they're kind of going through the same challenges that you're going through, right?
Yeah, definitely in the beginning. We were all in a room, and there was continuous glucose monitors and things going off. So I was like, wow, this is so cool to be in a room with like...
But it was all normal for you guys, right? Like normally you're alone doing that, whereas now the whole team is just like, all right, everybody get your meters out, let's do it.
Yeah, it's great because they have a team of doctors. I mean, the pro men are different a little bit. Obviously, they're on the road side, but here I am on the track side and competing at this high level, and I don't have that team support right then and there. Like, I don't have the team doctors right at my disposal right there, but I'm able to reach out to them whenever, and they've been a great support system along my entire journey. Just representing the team worldwide and knowing that I'm not alone, and just it's almost become like a family.
Now, is cycling the only sport to do this, or are there other professional sports teams that are doing the same thing that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of.
That's way cool.
Yeah, they used to be also triathlon and running, but
Okay.
they primarily want to focus on cycling.
Okay.
And then now in 2022, they want to also focus on driving change overall to helping people live a healthy, active lifestyle, and that's very similar to what I believe and what I do with St. Luke's as well here in the Lehigh Valley.
Real quick, and we'll get into St. Luke's in just a second. Living with diabetes, how does that affect your cycling? Like, obviously, you said you found out when you were 16. Like, did you see like a dramatic decline in your racing, or like how did that even come about?
I didn't notice anything at all. I was going through some routine blood work and testing, and when I was riding for the state, I went in for testing, and they said I had elevated blood sugar levels. And so I had no idea what that meant, and my dad picked me up, and we went to the hospital, and I was there for 2 weeks. Yeah.
2 weeks?
Yeah, it was a very long time compared to people living with type 1 that are then hospitalized. They maybe are in the hospital for a day or two.
Wow, so it was like dangerous levels.
I would say they wanted to make sure all of my organs were still functioning correctly. They wanted to make sure I had the proper care as far as meeting with different doctors and an endocrinologist and a nutritionist. So I really got the help that I needed. And all those 2 weeks felt like forever. I think they were really important.
Just to clarify, I think organ shutdown would classify as dangerous levels, but that's just me. I don't know. But I'm not a super athlete, so
yes,
I'm kind of a big dangerous baby too. So that's amazing. Wow.
I probably, looking back at it, my dad, we went to nationals when I was 16, a little bit before that, or when I was 15, and I just remember feeling really tired all of a sudden. Like, I remember being at training camp and being really strong, but I think then when I got to the competition, my cortisol levels were so high, my blood sugars were high then, that I just felt weak and tired, and my blood sugars, I don't know, they were probably really high. That was before I was diagnosed, so I'm kind of looking back, thinking like, when could have I been diagnosed? Maybe during puberty. I mean, it could happen at any age to anybody.
But your performance wasn't lacking. You just felt tired.
I just felt tired. And there's many cases that people who go on with undiagnosed type 1 diabetes because they might think there's like flu-like symptoms or they just don't feel well. But I think diabetes awareness is really important, and education is really important.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned cortisol. It's interesting. I was working on an episode for Wellness 101 and doing stuff on anxiety, and I've found out that cortisol is a major contributor to anxiety. So did you find yourself anxious during those times, or increased levels of anxiousness?
Yeah, I was growing up, and I was just always so active. I would never say I was like an anxious person. But competing and stuff gets your nerves going, and so of course, like being at a competition, having expectations, like especially now not being able to compete, like of course I get nervous.
Sure.
But it's learning how to also have that stress management and working with a sports psychologist, which I do. But sometimes your body just reacts, and so yeah, you have to be able to monitor your blood sugars. And so thankfully I have a continuous glucose monitor, and I take insulin injections, and so it's just become 24/7. That's always what I think about, and it would be great to see what life would be like without it someday when there's an official cure. And but for now I have all the resources that I have, and exercise is really the best medicine.
Well, and you're partnered with a great health network. You're a community ambassador for St. Luke's. Can you tell me a little bit about what you do for them?
Yeah, it's really great fit, and I've been partnered with them the last 2 years. So we haven't done as many community events as I would have liked, but before, when I joined with them, we did a type 1 camp for youth with Larry Holmes, and that was just cool opportunity. That was before I was an ambassador, but that's stuff that I love to do, to meet other kids, to share with them what I do, how I've kind of came across cycling and other sports. And you see also the parents listening and saying, okay, like if you can do it, my daughter or my son can do it too. And sometimes you hear that, or they'll be like, okay, we'll sign you up for practice. And so it's also becoming more of confident at such a young age with what with having diabetes, and sometimes it does make you kind of grow up pretty fast. But so I think it's important in our community to let other athletes know too, even if you don't have diabetes, even if whether it's nutrition or recovery or just doing things to take care of your health. I think it's really important, and it aligns with what I believe. And a big part of my diabetes and competing at this level is also just taking care of my health and nutrition, and it aligns exactly with what I advocate.
So tell me more about what you're doing with St. Luke's.
I've been really training really hard right now, getting ready for my season. So I'm in the gym 3 days a week, and one of those days I'm working with John Graham at the St. Luke's Sports Performance Center in Saturnia in Allentown.
St. Luke's own super athlete.
Yeah, it's been awesome working with him. Definitely have noticed some imbalances, just turning left all the time. One leg is stronger than the other, so it's working on my explosive power and strength on single leg.
I haven't even thought about that. If you're constantly turning left, is like one leg just like way bigger than the other? I mean, that's probably not.
No, but I definitely have an imbalance. It's gotten better. Like I used to have some more back pain, and it just came from my hip. And that's just because, turning left, there's more of like a hip impingement that could happen. And a lot of sprinters, just because they're in the gym and they have, there's a lot of torque and there's a lot of big gears, it's natural for some of those back or hip problems to happen. But so in order to combat that too, it's kind of working on those weaknesses. And I've been able to set up a really good program with John alongside my strength coach, and who's also my cycling coach. So it's good to have that support system.
Oh, that's awesome. So like when you say you worked out a program, a lot of times when they talk about lifting weights, you're supposed to do both sides. Are you just doing one side to kind of balance things out, or how does that work?
So I'm working in the gym 3 days a week. So one of those days is squat, is my primary lift, and then the next day is it's a Bulgarian split squat. So I have that's a single leg exercise. So that's one of those primary focuses. I also do leg press, but on Saturdays with John, I'm doing the front squat, and then with that I'm doing single leg plyometric boxes in between that. And then I also do trap bar jumps, and then I'll do a single leg exercise directly right after that, or single leg box jump, on an 18-inch box, so with one leg.
My knees literally exploded as you were talking right now. Oh my gosh.
And yeah, he's been putting me through this endurance workout for my upper body, because you have to be in this aerodynamic position too. So it's cycling is, at least track cycling and sprint cycling is full body. It's not just your legs, but your core has to be strong in order to drive the power to the pedals. And you have to have a stable upper body as well. You can't just be everywhere. So he's been working on my upper body endurance as well, and that's really hard.
Well, I was going to say, what kind of exercise are we doing there?
He has me going through a circuit, so 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, and it's 3 exercises. So I am pulling on these this resistant rope that's in the wall. Just there's some resistance, and then I do medicine ball. I have to see what they're called. Medicine ball throws. And then the ropes.
Oh.
And that gets me burning. And then I have a minute, and then I do that 3 times, but my heart rate goes up to like probably 175. And yeah, that's pretty hard. But just working on my upper body endurance.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So I've noticed it's actually been beneficial. I've been cleaning out my the downstairs, the basement, and so I've had to be lifting some stuff and carrying it out, and then my endurance is
like,
yeah, I could tell it's working. So yeah, it's been going great, and it's just fun to mix it up and do something different, but still benefiting my training. So it's been awesome working with John, having the resources at St. Luke's to help me to stay active and healthy. And I've also did PT earlier last year, and that was a really great opportunity. So yeah, I just want to stay healthy and do my best and be my best. And
sounds like you're doing all the right things. And
trying.
If you're working with John, I'm sure you're getting quite the workout for sure.
Yeah.
3 times a week with John?
Only 1.
Okay. Whew.
Yeah, because I'm
Goodness.
on the other 2 days I'm with my team, and but yeah, 1 day. So, but it goes by quick, and then I'm already back.
Oh my goodness. All right, so we talked a lot about sports. We talked a lot about cycling. Let's talk about the fun part about being a professional athlete, and that's you get to travel a lot, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe not now, but
lately. But
you used to be able to travel a lot, and I'm sure you will very shortly here, knock on wood. So what countries have you gotten a chance to see?
So I've been to Mexico and Colombia and Peru, but that was without a bike. I went for a short-term study abroad with Penn State Lehigh Valley. So I literally went around the world 1 year. Yeah, it started off that I went to LA for a camp, and then I had a race in the World Cup in Hong Kong, and then we went to Australia, Perth, which is one of the isolated isolated places in the world, just because there's not really another major city nearby. And
I was gonna say, talk about a long flight. My goodness.
Yeah, it was cool. I got to see Rottnest Island and see a quokka.
Get out of
It
here!
was so cool.
Oh, I'm so jealous of you. That's way cool.
So it was a really cool experience. So we had a training camp there, and then we went to Poland. So from there for Worlds. So then we flew to Singapore, and then I went to Poland. So I literally went around the world, because then I flew back to Newark. So that was quite
way to end that trip.
Yeah, but it was a great couple months.
That's awesome.
Just racing and training. But yeah, also in that time I forgot I did a World Cup in New Zealand too. So that's why.
Yeah, just
no big deal. No, but I forget sometimes. I think I should just make a list of like where I've been.
Did you? This is the nerd side of me coming out. Did you do the Lord of the Rings tour while you were there?
No, I didn't. We just don't have. So we go to these cool places, but we don't always have a lot of time.
Get on the bike. Get on the plane.
Pretty much, really. It's like, and stay off your feet. We have a training session tomorrow.
Oh, jeez.
So it's just like a lot of, there's not a lot of like fun free time. So usually after Worlds, so my dad's, lives in Germany. So usually like after the World Championships, if they're in Europe, I would stay with him, or we'd go somewhere. Like we went to the Normandy after
that's cool.
the World Championships this past year in Roubaix. So next year the World Championships are in Paris.
Wow, that's got to be brutal to like go places and not be able to like fully enjoy it because you're there for work.
Yeah, it is. It's really tough. So a lot of people are like, oh, you get to go to all these cool places, but yeah, it's not so fun to travel with a bike though. So if I want to go anywhere, I have to like think about what I want to do with my equipment.
And we were talking about this earlier when the cameras weren't rolling. Like traveling with a bike is probably not the easiest thing to do. It's not like your luggage is going to come out of the chute. Like your bike isn't going to come shooting out. Like where do you even go to pick up your bike? You probably have to go like some other special place.
Oversized baggage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always waiting for it. Hopefully, if there's a lot of athletes going to one competition from the next, hopefully your bike makes it.
I was going to say, did your bike ever not make it?
One time. Yeah, I was coming back from Colombia, and I was like, it's probably stolen. It's probably sold for other reasons.
Oh.
But no, I found it, and that was only one circumstance. So,
Okay.
but yeah, it's not easy. I mean, it's almost 100 pounds, so you're always hoping like you make weight under it,
Yeah.
So you're under 100, or it has to be cargo, and it's always like the same thing. I've had to pull up. No, it's over 50, but you won't take, you can take 75, you just can't take over 100. I have to show them their baggage fees because
That's so annoying.
they're telling me I have to take it to cargo, and I'm like, no, I don't. So I'm basically
Like, I do this all the time. Please just listen to me.
Yeah, or sometimes my fee could range in the baggage fee for a bike. It could be $250 or $350. It just depends who I get that day. So.
Do you have like a specialty like road case for your bike?
I have a double bike case, so it is tough to pack just because it's just very tight and you don't want to scratch anything. And then TSA, they like to look at it, and so one time they've cut the zip ties, and that made me very angry because they scratched some things, and I was just like very irritated. Oh. So I guess, traveling with a bike, I mean, you can't have nice things all the time. So can't be mad if something gets scratched. At least it still works.
So if you had to pick one country that is your absolute most favorite place, what would it be?
The USA.
All right, besides the USA, traveling wise.
It's between Australia and New Zealand. I really enjoyed. I would say New Zealand because there's no snakes.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. I would actually like New Zealand. I want to go hiking over there, but I just
so
don't want to
I'll
sit
go
on a
hiking
plane
there.
that long.
Yeah, well then you'd have to go over to Australia too, and but yeah, I'd love to go back there someday. And it's really neat to have cyclists come here to the Lehigh Valley to race from all over the world, because then you become friends with them, and so they stay here. You have cookouts, and then when you go to their country, they host you kind of. So it's just a really neat.
That's awesome.
Neat opportunity to travel the world and make friends.
Very cool. All right, so we talked about travel. Let's talk about your family a little bit.
Yeah.
What's that like?
They're supportive. My dad's German. He's very
He sounds tough.
He is really tough, but he's a big teddy bear actually.
Yeah.
He always just wants to help, and he he came from a background of race car driving.
Okay.
So that's really big for him and growing up, and he's very supportive. And
like
my mom,
Formula One or
he was racing supercarts and Formula 3, but
wow.
he really did. When we were watching that Michael Schumacher documentary the other day, he knows everything. He was telling me side stories of things that were happening in there because he's been to this track, or he knows this person that was in the interview, or he's met some of them. So it was really cool to hear that.
That's awesome.
It was someone that he didn't know on a personal level, but he knew Michael and knew his brother, and it's just really neat like how integrated my dad was, and so he gets the cycling side of things. And
well, racing is legitimately in your blood.
It is. So sometimes he wants to be like not a coach, but he wants to say do it or don't do it, and I'm like, Dad, like there's a lot more involved in this process. Like it's just not so cutthroat sometimes. So sometimes I just have to be more emotional with him.
As a dad myself, I can't even imagine what he must be feeling when he sees you on the track. Like I would just be like beaming with pride.
He is. He's really proud of me, and I know it. I feel it, and I guess it's kind of like this in my family too. My grandfather, he was a rower, and my dad's brother rower, and they were both alternates for the Olympics.
Is there anyone in your family who's not an athlete?
I don't know.
Is mom an athlete?
Well, she would always say like track and field in school, and
Good
she's in great shape, and she loves to work out, and they both my dad rides, but yeah, I mean, coming from a family that we're so close to making it to the Olympics too, in rowing, I want to accomplish that.
So we got mom and dad, and what about our fiance?
Yeah, Jamie. So
Okay.
he's a cyclist too.
Oh, okay.
So we actually met at the velodrome. So
Right here?
yeah.
No kidding.
So not the way that normal people meet these days. We actually met at the track. No, it's pretty cool.
But you might have to clarify which track you met at, because sometimes if you say we met
True.
at the track,
The velodrome here at the
put down a trifecta, and there he was.
yeah. So we had the friend group, and we would all hang out together, and his parents also used to race, and it was just a small world. Like his mom was a racer for a 7-Eleven team, a professional road team, and his dad was a sprinter. Is actually still a sprinter, still racing and training. He was gonna do his last nationals this year, but had a bad accident in one of the sprint events where they bumped, and so it was tough because he was training really hard for that. That's like side story, but he's still a sprinter and still going for it, and the masters category, because they have masters nationals too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so it's awesome to be integrated in a family that has a cycling background, who's supportive. And he's so Jamie, my fiance, he's retired, but he actually made a comeback last season with only 7 weeks of training, just because it was the nationals were here, and he was like, oh, I'll just do it. So he told my coach, and my coach was really happy because he was working with him for a number of years. And he was just going to do the team sprint, the team event with the 2 younger athletes. Then he was like, oh, I'll just sign up for the 2 other events, the kilo and the sprints. And he ended up winning all 3. And I was like, all the other years, he almost made it on the podium, or he was second, and he just blew it away.
So it's interesting just from a psychology perspective. Maybe it was just something as simple as like, he's just like, yeah, I'm just going to do this. And like, he didn't care anymore. So then like, that monkey's off your shoulder, and you just go out and you perform.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it just was so cool. I was more excited for him than my results, because I was like, this is so cool for him. For him, this opportunity has worked.
And
I'd say for
7
a
weeks
year.
of training?
Yeah. Well, he was riding on Swift. It's a kind of like Peloton, but not.
Okay.
It's more for more pro cyclists or cyclists, so it's not as integrative in that way of having somebody on your screen yelling at you. So it's a little bit low key, but yeah, he was swifting on
Swifting.
Swifting.
Well,
That's
I like
what they
that.
call it.
I was swifting
So
this
he was
morning.
swifting on my account, just because it's like, why I have 2 if you're living under one household.
Sure.
And just still training here and there, lifting. But
So he just
7 weeks of
swifted
training.
his way into the championships and crushed it.
And he wants to do it again this year. So we had a double training session yesterday, and he went to them. It's not, he doesn't have to, but he was like, yeah, I'll do it. So he trained yesterday.
All right,
too.
Jamie, new challenge. Instead of 7 weeks, let's do it in 4 weeks. Sit on your rear end for a little bit, hang out, and then 4 weeks in, let's go.
Yeah, but he said after this year, like nationals, he'll be done. Like, I was like, you sure about that? Because I'm like, now you sound like your dad.
We'll see what happens the following nationals.
But as long as he still enjoys it. So it's really cool to have like a training buddy too.
Do you guys get competitive about it at all, or are you just mostly supportive with each other?
Competitive back in the day, maybe when we were just starting sprinting and he kind of started sprinting. We were doing efforts together on the track, but now just supportive. Just because like I'm in a different program and at the gym. I mean, he's definitely way stronger, but he also has some back stuff too here and there, so he's not going to lift a bunch of weight.
I gotcha.
He's just want to stay healthy and just make sure his numbers are good on the bike, and it's cool to just motivate each other and to have somebody that's understanding and knows what that's about.
Did we set a date for the wedding yet?
Oh, I think later this year in September. I'm not sure yet. It's so hard to plan because like we have the world championships and we have races, so it's like we've told people kind of hold this date that are close to us, but we just like don't know yet because we have to get a final word on when are the world championships. Okay, what about training camps before that?
As if planning a wedding isn't hard enough, now you're gonna add some professional sports in there too.
I know, so I'm like, it's a lot of planning, but so is like, okay, how do you know what's gonna happen the rest of this year with racing or training camps? So it's really hard to plan.
Sure.
But we've been together almost 10 years. So,
oh wow.
So it's kind of like, I guess you could say we're married, but it'd be great to get married, but we're in no rush. Like if it can't be this year, we'll make sure when the time is right, and also financially and everything like is important too. So
good. All right, so now we're going to go to a quick rapid fire section. Favorite movie?
Bridesmaids.
Good choice. Favorite food?
Schnitzel.
Ooh, schnitzel. What is schnitzel?
It's like breaded pork or veal.
Oh, that sounds good.
Or chicken, whatever you prefer.
Favorite country? We already did that. Favorite song?
Artist?
Sure.
Dermot Kennedy.
Okay. Favorite sports team? Okay, two-part question. Favorite sport outside of cycling?
Bobsled.
Wow. All right, well, that doesn't help. All right, favorite... Do you like football? I know we don't like soccer, but do we like football?
I like football, but I don't watch it.
Oh, boy.
I like watching tennis. I guess I know what I'm
all right,
like,
so who's your
at.
favorite tennis player?
Serena Williams.
I just watched... did you watch the Will Smith movie about her dad?
No.
Dude, really good.
It's good.
Yeah.
I played at the same academy as they did when I lived in West Palm Beach.
No kidding.
Yeah, but they were a little bit older than me, so they weren't at that academy anymore. But it was the Rick Macy Tennis Academy.
Yeah. Yeah, they talk about that whole thing. You might even be like in the background there.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder what life would have been like if I actually were a tennis player. But I got a really bad injury in my foot
Ooh.
at a young age, so I just was like, it's not fun to me. So I wish I didn't stick with it.
Did you ever play foot tennis?
No.
So good.
I don't think I'm very coordinated with my feet. That's why it's probably good that they're clipped in now.
Oh, into the... Yeah, okay. I was like, what do you mean your feet are clipped in? Got it. All right. Favorite local health network?
My Health, My Hospital, My St. Luke's.
Wow, that was impressive. Can you tell me about your worst cycling injury?
Jamie, he's had bad crashes. I know we're talking about me, but like I just automatically think about him because he's like broken his scapula. He actually broke his scapula and his clavicle at the same time. So just like sometimes just getting flashbacks on that's brutal. So yeah, he has a scar here.
How does one recover from something like that?
Just time.
Like, do they have to reset it and everything else?
The clavicle, he has a plate. The scapula, nothing you can do. Just
Wow.
time. So yeah, that's the crazy thing with our sport too. I mean, you can get hurt pretty bad. But there are a lot of times.
But it's not like roller derby. Like, you guys aren't like...
No, you can't intentionally like be aggressive or
Okay.
make contact, but it can happen if you're making a pass and somebody comes up. But my worst injury was at a World Cup. I fractured my humerus.
Ow.
I thought it was my my shoulder, my rotator cuff, because it hurt so bad.
Yeah.
And I'd say concussions are pretty bad. I might have had only one, thankfully, in my sport. It's pretty good not to have too many of those.
Yeah.
Let's see. Just the road rash is just the worst. I would say that's the worst because with having diabetes, they don't heal as well for me.
Oh, yeah.
So they take forever to heal for me.
And are you wearing shorts when you ride?
Yeah, we're basically wearing like a cloth material that's like nothing. And so it just, you crash and it's like all torn up. So it looks really cool, but it's not fun when you crash.
Have you ever like crashed and then had to like continue to race, like do another race?
Yeah, because I wasn't that badly injured in that race where I broke my humerus or fractured my humerus. I didn't know. So I had the semifinals. Well, I was in the semifinals, so I had the finals. I didn't make the 1 through 6 final because I've crashed, so I went in the 7 through 12. But I remember getting out of my saddle and sprinting. I was like, I had all this pain radiating down my arm. I was like, maybe it's just because I fell really hard on it, going like 40 miles an hour. But it was so. And also, bruising your rib isn't fun.
Oh, I can imagine, just from a breathing perspective.
Yeah, or then trying to travel back on a plane and all your equipment.
Oh.
So I guess like it doesn't happen often, but the crashes are not friendly when they do happen. So it's always like, is my helmet okay? Then is my head okay? Is my bike okay?
Let's, you got any sponsors you want to give some love to?
Of course, St. Luke's. And excited for the year and the years that we have ahead. and the work that we're going to be doing in the community. Also, as far as snacks goes, Honey Singer, they're right here. They have the investor who is Factory, so they invest in food and beverage companies.
Okay.
And so their headquarters are in Bethlehem, but they also have the Honey Singer headquarters in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. Oh. So fortunate to have that sponsorship, and also Team Novo-Nordisk is big, and the work that we're doing together with type 1 diabetes, and just being able to race such a high level and have that type of support, not to always worry too in areas in my life, or I can do my job and enjoy good snacks and help other people. I mean, that's more than I could ever ask for. So it's pretty cool. It's really special. And
how can people find you? You got any social tags you want to shout out?
Yeah. So it's been Changing Diabetes for a long time, but Driving Change is the new hashtag. And but yeah, as far as my platforms, I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And it's just Mandy Marquardt, and I have a website. And I'm excited to continue to share my story with other people, and hope to hear from others too, and maybe see you all at the velodrome. And maybe we'll be back here after Paris.
Awesome.
In 2024.
Well, Mandy, thank you so much for coming in. Mandy Marquardt. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Yes.
Nailed it.
Yes. St. Luke's Community Ambassador, cycling superstar. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.